So you're all able to see the screen, right? Kamlesh,
Yes.
awesome. Thank you everybody for joining in. And yeah, so this is me. I'm Vasanta Lakshmi, and I'm a technical specialist at Microsoft. And we'll be talking a little bit about data security and privacy. Protecting your data, some things about DLP compliance and privacy. I say some things because we have 45 minutes. So we'll get started with understanding what are some of the top, data security concerns. So if you're an executive, or if you're an employee of any company, data security is of paramount importance today. So these are some numbers to get started with. Data security incidents are widespread. Probably at some point in time, we've all done it as well, right? But as an organization, you'd like your employees to be as compliant as possible, and you recognize your data, what kind of confidential data that is, what kind of incident it has, and things of that sort. But the numbers here are alarming, where 83% of organizations experience more than one data breach in their lifetime. So probably all the large organizations that you've heard of at some point in time have been compromised. There has been a data breach. Yeah, we've all read about them in the news, and this number is not really surprising. While malicious insiders account for 20% of data breaches, adding to cost, that's $15.4 million is what the number is for every organization. Average cost, that is. Organizations are struggling with a fragmented solution landscape. I mean, this is the reality of today, right? Like, how many different vendors do you have? How many different directories have you created for your own organization, be it security, be it compliance, any of those? There's so many different vendors that you're working with, right? So many different portals that you have to hop on. If you're an executive or a C-level, employee in the organization, to collect the data and be on top of things, you probably have to juggle so many things. Yeah, and the decision fatigue is a serious thing, and we are here to help in that process of making that decision easy for you by giving you as much visibility as possible. So yeah, data discovery is the key point. So did you know, or if I ask you to, did you know what are all the data that is there in your organization? Can you list them all? Is it on SharePoint Online? Is it on file server, on an on-premises server? Is it on Azure files? Are you using Amazon? Probably S3 buckets or G Drive. Like, what is it? Where's your data? And can you pinpointedly tell me how many of them are sensitive data? That's a very tough question to answer, right? And I'm sure all the large organizations are still trying their best to answer that query. So how does your organization protect sensitive data across your environments today? So there are multiple environments. There's structured data, there's unstructured data. So how are you catering to different requirements and different platforms where the data resides? And how does your organization manage insider risk? So yeah, somebody attacking from outside, the attackers are agile, they're on their toes, ensuring that all of us security folks are on our toes as well, right? But what about the insider risk? We are supposed to trust our employees, but once in a while we see these incidents where we see our internal employees are joining a compete organization. And as harmless or simple it might sound, he just wants to download his own project files and take it to the other company, but it's not really harmless, right? So you need to cater to insider threats. You need to cater to the disgruntled users. You need to look into users probably in performance improvement plan as well, and work along with your HRs. That's your insider risk. So the hidden cost of a poor data governance is high, although we don't overtly see it, but it definitely is. Files with no business value are, we're not related. Increasing volume and exposure. The amount of storage it would consume is huge, although it's not accounted for. We don't really delete our, emails anymore, right? It's all there, unless we are at the edge of it. That's just an example. So there are so many other storages being used in the organization. So, the volume keeps increasing. While the regulatory data, if you don't know what data that is and you haven't labeled them, So you don't know what kind of data that really is, and that gets accidentally deleted. That's not a scenario you would want to be in as well, because the consequences of them might be really high. The next one is when an incident occurs, data can be overexposed. The attacker might get his hands on a lot of data. We keep seeing it, right? Um, a lot of organizations' data is out there on dark web, sold for as what I've heard is it's about $2 per user details. It's on the dark net out there. So yeah. Um, Regulatory violations, that's an incident as well. The organization needs to answer to that, to a higher authority, and diminished brand reputation. So once you're in the news, the organization is in the news, it might have financial implications as well, bringing down the stock value. So the brand reputation is really important and cause increased fines. And when I talk about increased fines, if you're based out of India, you know about the DPDP Act that has been passed, right? That's for the privacy. If you're an end user, you should know that to a large extent, the government has empowered all of us as end users. While you can ask questions such as, "Hey, where's my data? Your organization. Hey, I'm an ex-employee. Can you delete my data?" This is a very good way of empowering the end user while also making the fiduciaries, that is the organizations, more responsible. So if they breach any of the privacy requirements, there is increased fines up to 200 to 250 crores. So yeah, so that's just an example of India. So you'll have something similar in other countries as well. Yeah, and then you'll have to react to find evidence of what has happened. So instead of being proactive, you're being reactive. And of course, there's money involved. And of course, potential loss of litigation can also be seen. So this is all like aspects of security and compliance management, right? So we always start with identity and access management at Microsoft. So the backbone is always going to be Azure Active Directory, and your RBAC roles, your identity, your applications that you'd onboard is all going to be on Azure Active Directory. The next one is threat protection. You need to ensure that whatever tool that you're using, it could be CASP, wherein you're bringing in third-party applications, but you need to ensure that it has enough intelligence to understand if there's a threat coming its way, or if the file is if the file contains a malware, it recognizes that. If there's a change in pattern of user behavior, the user suddenly tries to download a lot of files than his usual limit, the user profiling, the UBA algorithm, uh, also is present to help you with doing better threat protection. And then information protection and governance piece, where your DLP, your compliance will come into picture. So you need to ensure that you're protecting your data, discovering the data, and then protecting the data, and then managing it throughout the data's life cycle, all done through information protection governance piece. The next segment here is privacy management, and this has suddenly become the focus of all the organizations today with the DPDP Act. Um, and yeah, you can do wonderful things with privacy risk management, privacy risk management through our Priva solution, as well as SRR. That's the subject right request we have. That is going to help an organization's users to ask the question where the organization is able to answer those questions about the PII data of end users across the M365 locations. So we'll understand, like you might have had sessions across understanding DLP capabilities. You might be a pro with information protection already because it's been here for a while. And you might have done a little bit of work around IRM as well. Today, what we'll do differently is understand different personas, yeah, such as compliance officers, CISO, chief legal officer, and what are their what are their requirements, right? So if it's a compliance manager, you see that, he might say that, hey, I need to ensure our organization compliance against all regulation. and organizational standards enforced upon us, and we enforce upon on our employees. Yeah, that's a valid ask by the compliance officer. He needs to gather all the details about, hey, which country the end users are and which country customers they are working with. So it could be India and Europe, right? Like there's DPDP right now we have, and GDPR is there for European users. So the compliance manager is supposed to gather all these details and then start working around what are the requirements of these assessments in general? What is the ask under these, right? So we have what is called as compliance manager. If you haven't explored it already, it's in the compliance portal. You can go on to that and you can look at various assessments. There are multitude of assessments for you to go over GDPR, ISO, requirements, and I think there's one coming up for DPDP in the near future as well. Yeah. And then if you're a CISO, yeah, or if you're working with a CISO, what is their requirement? He or she probably would say, hey, I need to ensure all our sensitive data is rightfully classified and protected. I also need to ensure my environment is protected from intentional oversharing of data loss. Yeah, that's a primary requirement. And everybody does data loss prevention, right? To whatever maximum capability that is possible. That we're all moving. If you ask me, where are we today as not just Microsoft, any other vendor as well? Like, are we at the true DLP phase? I wouldn't say so. We're all moving towards, the true 100% data loss prevention stages, but I think we are still a little bit away from it. There's always a chance and scope for improvement, but we can definitely assist, CISOs in ensuring that we are very close towards data loss prevention with the right set of products in place and right set of process in place as well. Yeah, that is done through information protection. Understanding the data is key. Understanding and knowing where the data is and what type of data that is. That's just very important. And then preventing it through a DLP while the data is not getting out of the organization. And if it's a very confidential data, maybe the data should be just within the executives of the company. And also, the intentional oversharing of data piece, that's the insider risk we're talking about, right? So for which we have insider risk management. Similar to that, we have a chief legal officer who's going to be responsible for e-discovery and putting on sending legal notices. So what is going to help them address that? That's going to be e-discovery. And the privacy officer. It's been made mandatory for data fiduciaries today through the DPDPA Act that an organization should have a DPO, data privacy officer. So privacy management has gained momentum within India, and it has gained momentum in other countries uh, a while before as well. So privacy officers' role is going to get highlighted, and that the requirements of theirs to ensure that the end user's PII data is not abused, and the organization are proactively working towards informing the end users. Can be done with privacy management. There are two components to it, and privacy risk management is the primary one to help the data fiduciaries to address the end users' privacy requirements. The next one is regulatory supervisor, financial services industry, primarily. So if there's any communication requirements, what needs to be shared, what need not be shared, if, what's compliant, what's not compliant. So that needs to be assessed or addressed by communication compliance. Communication compliance will work with three different, platforms. Like one is definitely Teams, Yammer, and third-party connectors such as LinkedIn can also be leveraging communication compliance here. That's to ensure that the language that's being used, for example, you can use trainable classifiers such as threatening language? Are they, is profanity being used? All of those, can be leveraged in the backend to ensure that this communication across the organization is compliant, basically. So for the Vice President, Information Management and Governance, you have the requirement of the VP would be, I need to be able to discover, monitor, retain, and dispose of all our business records. So not let anybody delete it if they have marked a file or an email as a record, right? So this requirement is going to be addressed by information governance and management. So going in depth of what the ask of information security or governance officer, leaders, data protection teams, right? So what are the needs? Ability to leverage from existing tools and technologies to minimize required investment. So this is a common ask. We keep hearing this again and again, and they would like it to be policy driven, contextual, understanding the context. It's just not a simple NLP anymore, right? You need to understand what's happening in the document, understand at the fingerprint printing level, or understand at the concept contextual level, and then better align with the needs of the organization in labeling that document. That's another ask as well. Integrated dashboards with full upstream visibility. You need a single dashboard. That goes without saying. Be it your Defender for endpoint, be it your Defender for identity, Defender for cloud, Azure AD, identity protection, or the DLP or the CASP, Defender for cloud apps. It could be anything. You'd want to view the alerts in an incident format in a single place. Yeah, you of course have SOC team, you have your own CM, it could be Sentinel, it could be something else. So what is it that you would like to do? You'd like one single dashboard. Why one single dashboard? Because it can correlate the incidents and show it incident in a story-like format. Hey, somebody tried accessing your endpoint and there was an Azure identity protection breach, and the user is a risky user. And then somebody tried to execute, a ransomware command, a PowerShell script. That's the job of the MDE. And then, he managed to compromise the device. He's moving on MDI for the lateral movement, and the data in this journey, the data is getting breached as well. So you would like the entire timeline, right? So the integrated dashboard is the key ask by most of the customers these days. So what are the challenges? These are the asks. Okay, good enough. We know that. What are the challenges? Discovering data across entire tenant. It's not an easy ask, and tenant was just one simple ask that they have, but it could be across the tenants as well, uh, for which the second point says protecting data across Microsoft and non-Microsoft environments, eliminating exposure points due to third parties handling data. So these are the challenges, they'll have to address not only for their employees, but also for third parties that are handling their data. So what does Microsoft offer to them to address these challenges? To know and protect our sensitive data wherever it is. We are going to embed the protection at the file metadata level through labeling and encryption at the same time if it's a confidential document. And this is highly recommended, although I see some bit of reluctance in the lot of customers that I talk to on a daily basis. They would like to use DLP because DLP is with us for a very long time, right? But information protection is the new way to go, and you'll have to get yourself convinced with all the right answers to know why information protection is important, and then go ahead convincing, the information security or governance officers or any customer that you're working with, or if you yourself are, or the information security governance officer. So this is also recommended by organizations such as NIST, NIST. So information protection is the way to go. And the next one is managing insider risk with end-to-end approach, right? That is, we have insider risk management, and you don't want, even with having the metadata level protection through information protection, you still don't want the file to get out. Yeah, and for get out through email or a web page or on USB, it could be any of those, or on a cloud-based app, a SaaS-based app. So then you'll have DLP to help you address those requirements. And the best part is DLP can integrate with our IRM as well. So if IRM tells you, hey, this user is a risky user, he's put down his paper, yeah, and his activity has suddenly changed from downloading one file to two file in a day to 50 file in a day. So the user risk is really high. In that, what would you like to do as an organization? Stop that user from doing anything more or abuse the data, right? For that, what do you require? You require DLP, data loss prevention. So to bring them all together for you, we have what is called as Microsoft Purview to address this information security or governance officers requirement, right? So understand and govern your data, be it your structured, unstructured data, if it's on an endpoint, if it's on SharePoint, or if it's on any of Azure SaaS-based, PaaS-based services, SQL, where you have structured data, or third-party tools such as Snowflake, for example. So you have so much more that's coming on roadmap as well. And then once you understand and start governing your data, the next one would be to safeguard them. Have the right set of encryption in place, the right set of DLP policies, and then move on towards improving risk and compliance posture in your organization. Understand the regulatory needs. So if you go back, this is the requirement of the compliance manager as well. Yeah. So this is all you could do with Microsoft Purview, all in all. So with privacy getting a lot of attention these days, Microsoft Purview and Microsoft Priva, both of them help you with your data governance and data privacy management. So Purview helps you with for the structured data piece, we have data map, we have data insights, data catalog. While for your unstructured data, we have sensitivity labeling, encryption, rights management. These might be some things that you're already using, and you have data archival, retention, legal hold, and records management to address your e-discovery requirements. You have legal discovery and search and audit tracking, and data loss prevention, email endpoint for Office 365, Teams, third-party cloud. This is something probably you've already explored, but that's there under purview piece for your unstructured data. And of course, inside risk management, regulatory compliance management, compliance manager, all of them are part of the puzzle for under Microsoft Purview. And while the Microsoft Priva is going to help you with data privacy management by helping you discover personal data. So how do we discover personal data is the backend template, the SIT-based template. I think we have 300 odd templates. It's already there. You could use the templates that'll help you identify the personal data. And then you can manage privacy risk. And then you can go on understanding the endpoint requirements and create a data subject request, right? And we call that Microsoft Priva SRR, subject request, right? That's the terminology that we use. So I think we've gone into these details already, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. But the piece of the puzzle to answer the requirements of your information governance officer, you'll require information protection, insider risk management, and DLP working together to dynamically address your DLP and your information protection requirements while also addressing your insider risk within the organization. So the adaptive protection piece, like I've explained previously, if there's an elevated risk, the disgruntled user or the user joining compete for example, is trying to download a lot of project files, which elevates the risk of that end user, right? So this is the part of the role of insider risk management to detect risky users, to assign a score to that risky user. And what does DLP do? Hey, this is a very high score of risk. I'm not going to allow you to do further actions. I'm going to deny all your action is the role of DLP. So they work hand in hand, and you can do amazing things for your organization or for your customers' organization using them in an integrated fashion. So this is all things Microsoft Purview. I'm not going to go in depth of them because we've already discussed this in one of the previous slides. Let's quickly moving on to the next one. So we've learned all things, Microsoft Purview, how it applies to, unstructured data, what are the components we have. I mean, we've just touched just scratched the surface, if I can call it, with the time limit in mind. So the next one would be understanding the role of privacy officer. What are his needs and challenges? So what are the asked by a privacy officer, right? Understand where the risky data lives in systems and business environments. And another important ask, which our DPDP Act is also empowering the end users with, is for an organization is to respond to DSRs, data subject rights. So what are the challenges? Why are they not able to, address them to the full capacity? Yeah. So evaluating risk and compliance posture in itself might be challenging. So if you suddenly ask this question to your, privacy officer, where is my, uh, private data, PII, where have you been using it? Is it just within within the same country I reside in, or is it being transferred? Have you used anonymization? If you have been asking these questions, so the privacy officer needs to proactively understand risk and compliance posture to be able to address these questions well. While automating has been an industry-wide challenge, automating and streamlining privacy controls to meet regulatory requirements. This has been a challenge, and Microsoft is trying to address that through privacy risk management, risk management. You can, track personal data and build a privacy resilient workspace. So let's say I have a document where I have my name, address, and credit card data, and I've shared it with my colleague. Maybe this is something we're collecting just within our team, and I've shared it in a Teams channel. Yeah, so organization, as an organization or the head of, if you're a privacy officer, that should, like, how would you know it? Like, this is just within a small team, right? But as a privacy officer, because credit card information is PII data, you need to have tools, the automated tools to understand, hey, even though this document is shared just within your teams, probably this has gone out. Do you want to make it private, and you want to make the end user proactively aware of where this PII data is. So what helps you with that? Private risk management. And then you have visualize your, privacy landscape, that to give you that vision for the privacy officer, where the data is and how it's being used, what kind of sensitive information that is, how many of these contains credit card information, how many of this contain probably Aadhaar card, how many of the documents contain SSN, how many of the documents actually contain passwords itself, right? So to visualize that for the entire data estate, or the entire organization, private risk management is the way to go. And to respond to DSRs at scale. So I have seen large organizations doing this manually as well. Although, month on month, they might get about 1,000 odd DSR requests. They're struggling. I've seen them struggle with Excel sheets. So where can you point them at from now on? So there's something called PRIVA SRR, subject rights request, where the end user, upon raising a request or asking questions such as, hey, where's my PII? Hey, I'm an ex-employee. Can you delete my PII? So such requests you can answer in a more automated fashion across Microsoft 365 locations. And other locations, if you export the data and bring it into Priva, you can definitely answer queries, create a case, do a search across all these locations and answer your end user in a better and automated fashion as well. So yeah, here's all things that organizations need to manage. These are some of the requirements to safeguard customer and employee privacy. If de-identification, data minimization, privacy training, regulation tracking, cross-border data transfer. So depending on what the border regulations are for the PII data, where it needs to reside. So cross-border data transfer can be an important aspect. You have consent and preference management. Yeah, so the consent manager is a huge ask as well. That's an upcoming area of interest. And then you have vendor risk management, there's data breach notifications, then you have personal data record keeping, privacy impact assessment, DPIAs is a huge ask as well. I'm saying huge ask because the renewed interest in all of this, especially within Indian customers, is mainly because of the new DPDP Act that has been released, and the impact assessment or the consent manager or consent management from the end users or even the vendors or partners they might be working up with has become of paramount importance because of the spill. And then subject right request and access governance minimization. So all of this will be part of the role of privacy officer to ensure he follows through. So how does PRM, the privacy risk management, help here with data discovery and visualization? So I think I've already given you examples. How does it help you visualize the data? I gave you the example of credit card data in a file, which could be just shared within your team, right? But as a privacy officer, who's not part of your team, still should get an. Okay, so I think I got a feedback that the audio is very feeble. Is it the same for everybody?
It looks good from my side, Vasanta. You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
You have
So
12 minutes more.
sure,
Just a reminder. Yeah.
yeah. So you can gain visibility into this. The example I took was credit card information or Aadhaar card number or SSN number if of other countries. So these are all the, visibility requirements of privacy officer, which can be addressed through privacy risk management. How does it address? The end user gets an email notification about the file that he's probably overshared, and the organization is asking him to minimize the file that is being shared. So minimize the exposure minimization, right? So he can just go on the email itself and click on, hey, make this file private. That's the level of accessibility, or that's the level of easiness that privacy risk management can bring about for both organizations as well as end users. And of course, it's policies driven. You have policies for visualizing your privacy landscape. You get these in percentages and numbers. What's happening within your the dashboard is pretty intuitive. You can get the hey, this many percentage of your users are sharing SSN, for documents with SSN, or if there's a data transfer policy that you would have created, you'll get reports based on that. You can create a data minimization policy and data overexposure policy as well from your privacy risk management. And subject right request, or the more common term is data subject rights, is to empower the end users, and the end users can ask these questions about where where their data is residing, where the data is residing, what kind of PII has been shared, where is it today, and if it's an ex-employee, for example, can immediately choose to can raise a request to get to be forgotten. The right to be forgotten is also important, and a lot of users might choose to exercise them. Now that we have now that the PDP Act has made it uh, made everybody more informed about this. So here's a way you can go ahead and integrate other privacy tools that you might be using along with Microsoft Priva. For example, you can look at OneTrust, Big ID, Wirewheel, etc. Yeah, so if you are using any part of this to answer the data subject request by the end user, you can definitely do so. You can just look at integrating them while that is also supported. So yeah, the compliance ecosystem is growing, and from a customer who's used Microsoft Priva, here's what he's got to say. Microsoft Priva will help us identify and prevent critical privacy risks that arise from transferring private data across borders. So they have GDPR over there, right? So this is a huge concern for those countries. So border sharing, oversharing, what is allowed to share. Of course, for any business to work, it's important that they do cross-border works and they need to share some bits of data. So while the privacy of that has had compliance boundaries or regulatory boundaries set up by regulatory requirements such as GDPR, DPDP, you need to work in a fashion it doesn't really affect the productivity while you're still catering to the end user's privacy requirements and still keeping the privacy information within like for example, hey, it should be stored within Europe, stored within India. You need to understand the regulatory requirements and work around it. So this has been the use case or the feedback after using Microsoft Priva. So I'm just quickly going to showcase the portal. Just give me 1 second. I think we have a couple. So this is the compliance portal that I believe you're all familiar with. You might have just used Office 365 compliance, Office 365 DLP, or you might have used labels sometime in the past. So I'm guessing you'd be familiar with the compliance portal, but just quickly taking you through this. So you have information. I'm just giving you a perspective, Microsoft point of view about all the solution that we have across Microsoft Purview. As you can see, this portal is called Purview, and we have Priva also embedded into this. Also, there's a lot of vision for Priva that probably I'm not at freedom to discuss right now, but maybe sometime next year we'll all be aware of what that is in the next roadmap. So information protection and governance will have data lifecycle management, DLP, information protection, records management. We've learned that information governance, uh, uh, the head of information or security governance will require these products. Yeah, so when the birth of data, you create a file, you start an email, you send it, you receive email. So what happens in between before it's deleted, right? You need to manage the entire life cycle of it. If it's a regulatory email, you might if it's really important that you might want to mark it as a record. Management is the way to go. Or if it's you want to retain it for like say 5 years, data lifecycle management is the way to go. And then you have privacy. So we spoke about privacy risk management and data subjects rights. Privacy is in the same portal. You have insider risk management, where we cover communication compliance. So this is across Teams, Yammer, and third-party connectors such as LinkedIn I spoke about. Any threatening language that end users might be using, profanity that might be detected, and you want to go ahead and mark it as a policy violation and delete it. So that's where communication compliance will come into picture. You have information barriers to create logical barriers just within one organization where, team A is not interacting with team B at all, by creating these logical barriers. We spoke in depth about insider risk management. We have discovery and response. This is also the requirement of chief legal officer. So going back to the persona slide, so chief legal officer, he needs to work around this. Maintain audits, look into e-discovery requirements, legal hold requirements, sending notices to end user. All of it will be catered to by e-discovery here. Yeah, I think I have 2 to 3 more minutes. So I'm just going to show you the back end of it. So the compliance manager piece to address your regulatory requirement is under uh, compliance portal itself, where you see compliance manager here. You can go over the assessments. Yeah, you can actually start with a data protection baseline for M365, and this is something upcoming. And you can go ahead and add GDPR similar to this or any other assessments that you see fit. Yeah, so as you can see, we have about 373 such items. California Personal Privacy Act or any other privacy management framework for different organizations or different countries that you're working with. So you can look through them and help your organizations be compliant through Compliance Manager. So data classification, I would say, is the backbone for compliance portal. So I'm quickly going over the classifiers here since this is more important. So you have trainable classifiers, sensitive info types, and EDA classifiers. So if you remember, I spoke about this briefly. So what happens if you see, discriminatory language or used in Teams, or if they're using profanity, or if they're using offensive language, if they're using harassment, targeted harassment, threatening language, all of that, right? You could use this. That's why I'm calling this a backbone. Or if you say, hey, I want if the documents contain source code. This is our AIML that we speak about. Okay, so let me quickly. Okay, there's tenable classifiers for source code, for example. I was trying to search. Yeah, so here it is. Or if it's a financial document that you'd want to immediately look at and block it from being sent outside. You don't know how to do it, but immediately. But this tool can assess the document, whether it's a source code document, finance document, and it can actually block it. And then you have sensitive info type. You have 315 odd sensitive info types for full names, for credential passwords. And if you're from India, if you're from US, if you're from Australia, and so many different countries. I showed you 315, right? I'm just highlighting India here. So there's voter card, Aadhaar number, PAN number, all of it that is going to be covered. You can even create your own fingerprint-based SIT. You can create customized SITs as well as custom trainable classifiers. So after you create this, you could go ahead and use them in your, labels. While creating labels, you can use them in your DLP policies, etc. Yeah, so that's the advantage of looking into and tweaking your own classifiers or creating your own fingerprinting SITs and then leveraging them in the policies while you're creating your own DLP or information policies. We also have insider risk management. You could see, I'm just going to quickly, I think I am hearing a lot of them saying my voice is breaking. I think I'm at the very end of it. I'm just going to stop it with inside risk management indicators, policy indicators. So what are some of the things that we use uh, in the indicators, right? Policy indicators. So this is for your Office 365, like sharing SharePoint files with people outside the organization is an indicator for insider risk, right? If he's not doing, and if he suddenly is doing that for 10 of the files in your SharePoint, that is an indicator. And you have not just for Office 365, you have device indicators as well. Creating and copying files to USBs, another issue. So like mounting USB to a device, if he's doing this repeatedly, and if that has not been his regular behavior, then all of these indicators can be turned on. And you can leverage this in insider risk management. I'm sorry, I think my audio, I think like 3 or 4 of you have highlighted at the very end that it's very feeble. But yeah, that's the insider risk management backbone. You can create policies after you understand the backbone. So the whole idea of mine was, is it the same for everybody? I think I'm almost at the end of it. So I'm just
Looks good from my side.
Even I have no issues. Your voice is clear.
okay, great. Yeah. So yeah. Okay, thank you. For clarifying. I think that's about it. I just wanted to show you the backbone, the back end of what you'd use, the classifiers, be it classifiers or the policy indicators for insider risk management. I would like you to go out there and try out policies by using those indicators, and also adaptive protection, because that will integrate with your DLP. And let me know what you think about it, or if you have any questions, feel free to ask me about it.
Okay. Thank you, Vasanta, for that great session. Are there any handles where they can reach out to you for any questions online on social media channels?
Hey,
Yeah, I
one
think
question. One question. Sorry. So how do we generate the logs? So now we are creating a policy, right? For auditors, if they ask if they want to get the evidence on the log that has been generated for a particular team or particular domains, right? So where do you find all these logs?
You need to elaborate. Like you want logs for DLP, you want logs for
DLP,
information
DLP,
protection.
DLP or data
So,
production, anyone.
so you want logs for DLP for endpoints, right? Or is it like
Correct,
Office
correct,
365?
correct.
Also, endpoint logs are on the system itself. So there's this DLP internals URL. You can actually go in there and find out the status of the files. But
Okay.
what are you trying to find out from this DLP policy itself? I mean, this log. What is it that you want to debug, or what is it?
No, in case if the auditors they want to verify the data and all, right? So in case they want to know the, we need to submit supporting documents to them for the internal or external audit, right? So in that case, if they